on Twitch. Hello, people. Twitchies.
Twitchies.
All right, we are
That's
live.
yay.
So if you're ready to go, we can go ahead and kick this thing off.
Yeah,
Are you as ready as I
sounds
am?
good.
All right, let's do this.
Oh.
This episode of Nerd Cave Retro is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
You're listening to the Nerd Cave Network.
Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And I'm Derek Diamond.
So today was first day of baseball season. How'd the first game go?
The first game was this past Wednesday. So we actually concluded the first home series this afternoon, which, it has its ups and downs like it always does. There's some parts that are very chaotic. There are some that are fun. So it was really about what I expected, but it's long days. But, it just so happened that the first month and a half of the season, the Sunday games, which are normally at 4:00, moved to 1 p.m., which provided plenty of time for us to do, as we're recording this, not one but two episodes today. Yeah. So it all kind of worked out. But no, it was busy, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think what night was it that I tweeted that our local team here, the Biloxi Shuckers, they had their opening day festivities, and I only live maybe a mile as the crow flies to the stadium right across the bay. And I'm sitting here in my office, and all of a sudden it sounds like World War III outside. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I saw it on Twitter. I was like, whoa, because I hear explosions, and there's the night sky looks like daytime. And I was getting pretty worried there for a bit because of, our president starting wars all over the place. I'm like, wow, did World War III start or what?
The World War has made its way to Biloxi.
Yeah, but the world almost ended yesterday. I don't know if anybody was looking at my Twitter. A tornado touched down like a quarter mile away from my house, like right down the street, and took out 3 Alarm Comics, took out that whole little shopping center there. I mean, not complete, it didn't level it or anything, but it did a lot of damage to it. All the windows are busted out, ripped off some of the roof, like all the signs for the stores. Local restaurant was damaged really badly. CJ's Seafood House was damaged. And our power was out for about 3 hours last night. So that was fun. I knew it was headed your way, so I hope you guys didn't get what we got.
It wasn't as bad as everyone was making it out to be. And what was funny was we actually had a game last night, and we were getting blasted on social media for still planning on having it, even though the threat of the bad weather. But it kept getting pushed back later and later and later because that storm moved really slow. Because I remember keeping track of it, on radar throughout the entire game, and it was just pretty much sitting over you guys, and then it just slowly moved to Mobile, and then as soon as the game ended, we put the tarp on the field, and I think it started raining here around 10:30 last night. But it never really got. There was a lot of lightning, but there were no tornadoes or anything around here, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, and we actually thought it was the end of the storm because we were getting notifications on our phones all day with flood warnings and tornado warnings, and then they said the storm was supposed to be over by 4:30, and we never got any of it. We didn't get any rain or anything. We just got some lightning, and then about 5:30, all of a sudden, the world was ending, and that was pretty crappy. So that's why I didn't do any streaming or anything last night. I was just sitting in the dark, watching Galaxy Quest on my laptop.
Never give up, never surrender.
That's what I did last night. Let's see. Oh yeah, one thing I did want to bring up. I went to what do they call it? Flashback Cinema today, and saw Back to the Future in the theater with Mr. Wally Phelps and
nice.
from the Pop Culture Palette. That was awesome. If you ever get to see Back to the Future on the big screen, do it. It is so worth it.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh, absolutely. I never got to see it in the movie theater when I was a kid. I always watched it, on VHS. And the first time I've ever seen it on the big screen, and it was awesome. I noticed so much more stuff on the big screen, like looking in the background and all that kind of stuff. A lot of things I never noticed before, like little Easter
if they have
eggs
it
all
here,
over the place.
If they have it here, I'll definitely go check it out, because it's tough to make a list of like a true top 10 favorite movies, because I have this conversation with people every now and then. It's so hard to do because people are so subjective with movies, like with genres and taste and things like that. But I can honestly say that Back to the Future would be on my top 10 all-time favorites list.
Yeah, easily. Like it's probably in the top 5 for me. I mean, that's up there with Star Wars as one. Like I keep saying Star Wars these days because I'm an old man, but I'm talking about like A New Hope. Like I've seen A New Hope well over 100 times over the course of my life, and I've probably seen Back to the Future that many times as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies. So if you ever get to see it, dude, go see it. It's awesome.
No, I will, absolutely.
But on that note, let's go ahead and let's move into, we got a lot of news to cover for this week and next week, so let's go ahead and get into it. To start us off with in the news, I do have a correction. Last week or the week before, I had said it was, I think, Derek Bryant, who's one of our regular social media guys who talks to us a lot. I got him confused with somebody else. It was actually Thad Smith who requested that I do Little Nemo, so I wanted to throw him a bone and and let everybody know that it was him who suggested I do Little Nemo. And also, he was talking to us about if we do a Patreon. He said he would love to be a Patreon supporter of the show, so we got to jump on that so we can start paying for this thing.
Yeah, we got to figure out all the details with all that.
But for our first story, actually, King of Kong star stripped of high scores and banned from competition. This is actually, I got this off of Variety. Famed high score gamer Billy Mitchell was officially stripped of his Donkey Kong and other video game high scores and banned from submitting scores to the world's largest tracker, Video Game World Records, following a decision that he cheated, Twin Galaxies announced. They said, with this ruling, Twin Galaxies can no longer recognize Billy Mitchell as the first million-point Donkey Kong record holder, and according to our findings, Steve Wiebe would be the official first million-point record holder. And I don't think there's, did they go into, he used emulated software and not the original circuit board version of the game, which means a player could cheat in any number of potentially undetectable ways. That's why all submitted high scores must be from playing on original, unmodified arcade machines. So he's been stripped of his record officially.
By, you said famed high school gamer, best known for his role in the King of Kong. You mean the villain of King of Kong? That's villain. Even the picture, he looks kind of douchey.
He does. He's just got that look about him. Just says, I'm a douche.
Yeah. I mean, he could very well be a nice guy. Who knows? But I know we've joked about it before. The way he was portrayed in that documentary was not the most flattering, but this is a story that we've kind of talked about off and on the last few weeks, and I can't really say I'm surprised. If he did cheat, then his record should be taken away.
Oh, well, here's from the official statement after they notified Guinness World Records. On 2/2/2018, Twin Galaxies member Jeremy Young filed a dispute claim assertion that against the validity of Billy Mitchell's historical and current original arcade Donkey Kong score performances of 1,047,200. The Donkey Kong tape See a mortgage broker score, a boomer score, and on the technical basis of a demonstrated impossibility of original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware to produce a specific board transition images shown in the videotaped recordings of those adjudicated performances. He concluded that not only can original Donkey Kong arcade hardware not produce the board transition images shown in the recording, but that these transitions were actually generated through the use of MAME emulated software. So he got caught. As you get caught, and you get stripped. That's just all there is to it.
I wish I had a gavel that I could just bang on the table and say case closed.
Yeah. So that puts Steve Wiebe at the top, which is good because, that dude actually earned it. And
yeah.
So congratulations to him. It sucks that, it took this long to make him number one, but he actually did it with people watching him. So Billy Mitchell wants to, well, I don't even know if he can actually do it again. If he actually ever could do it at all. I think he might be banned. Yeah, I think he's just banned altogether. So even if he did do an actual 1,000,000-point run, he would never be able to use it as a world record. So that's what you get.
Well, you know what they say about karma.
Yep, karma's a bitch.
Yep. This next story we actually touched on last week. This is from Polygon.com, but this is official now, and this goes credit to Randy Bailey for sending this story in. The Sega Genesis Mini, aka Mega Drive, has been officially announced. To commemorate the console's upcoming 30th anniversary. Wow, I can't believe it's that old. Sega took the opportunity to unveil its own miniature classic edition version of the legendary 16-bit Genesis, or as it was called in the rest of the world, the Mega Drive. The so-called Mega Drive Mini will be released in Japan first, with the U.S. and other territories later this year, according to AtGames, whose technology will power the console. You may recognize AtGames, whose Sega Genesis flashback console tried and failed to match Nintendo's efforts last year. I'm all for this. I will be getting one. I absolutely will.
I'd like to get one too, but I'm not at all excited about AtGames being the actual maker of the hardware. I'm kind of a little bit weary of that, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It'll be cool to go back and play, the old Sonics. Like it's one thing playing it on like an emulator on your computer, but even with the NES Classic and the SNES Classic, having that controller, and using it to play those games, having a Genesis controller, which is holding it's a little weird. Like it's an odd looking controller because it's got, I think, 6 buttons on the side. It's got like ABC and XYZ on the right side. But other than that, I'm really excited for it, and I'm curious as to what games they're actually going to put on this thing.
So do you think, that's what I was going to ask you, do you think they're going to just do the flat 30 games, or do you think they're going to try to one-up Nintendo and do like, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 games on it? Because they did have a little bit bigger of a library than I think even the Super Nintendo even had.
I mean, if I'm them, I put as many games on this thing as it'll hold. Whether that's 40, whether it's 50, or even more.
Yeah.
I'm as many as you can put on there. I would do it.
I would too. I'm really excited about getting one of these. I still never got a Nintendo Classic or a Super Nintendo Classic. I want them, but I was never that hardcore about getting one. I always said that if I just ran across one, I would get one, but I never really just ran across one because I've got an emulator on my computer. I've got the actual old Super Nintendo and Nintendo, and I don't know, I just kind of never really felt the need to get one. But with a Sega Genesis, I never had one as a kid. I would love to have one of these.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting story to follow, especially because I really want to know what games are put on it and when it's going to come out in the U.S. It's got to be, I think, a holiday release, if I had to guess.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think we're probably looking at maybe a midsummer to fall release, I would think. Especially in America, they're going to try to hit that Christmas season pretty hard. So that would be I would say, if not midsummer, at least by like September or so, October-ish.
For sure.
But also at that same event, Sega announced that updated versions of its classic titles Shenmue 1 and 2 are headed to the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and PC. That's going to be happening this year. Sega says the updated games will be available in both physical and digital forms. Did you ever play the Shenmue series? I never got into those games. I really just kind of haven't really heard of them until now.
Yeah, I recognize the name, but I never played them because with Sega, Sonic was really the only games that I played for that system. So people seem to be happy about it. So I'll have to do more digging on this.
Yeah, everybody was going crazy about this on Twitter, and I was like, what is Shin? I mean, I'd heard of it, but I don't know. It's just one of those things that kind of passed under my radar, and just I never really paid attention to it. I'll have to look it up and see what these games are about.
I find it to be kind of funny that it's coming out on every console except the Switch.
Yeah.
It's like it's reigniting that old rivalry with the the SNES and the Genesis back in the 90s.
It wouldn't surprise me if Sega tried to come out with a new console in the next couple of years to try to just reignite that old flame war they had back in the 80s. I mean, you remember, I put a couple of old ads on the Nerd Cave Retro Twitter, the old Sega does what Nintendo don't print ads back in the day that we used to see all over the place. I liked it back in the day. I mean, I never played a Sega, I never had one, but I loved those old rivalries that used to happen back then.
Yeah. Here's a question I'll post for the listeners, and you can post this on Twitter or Facebook. What's your favorite like classic retro video game ad? It can be like a poster or a commercial. What is it? Because I'd be very curious to see that, because I've got I'll post this on the Facebook and the Twitter page. Yeah. Have you ever seen the old Japanese Link to the Past commercial?
Probably. I have to look that up.
Words can't describe it. For those listening, you can look it up, but it's so bad that it's amazing.
I think my favorite, old retro advertising is probably the Now You're Playing with Power poster that used to come with did it come with the action set, or did it come with something else, like maybe with or did you get like one big one with the action set and then you'd get like a smaller one with select games or something like that? But you remember that poster,
I want to say
though.
It came with the action set.
I think so too. I'd love to find a reprint
for sure.
of it. I looked them up on eBay, but the last time I looked, they were kind of expensive, and I didn't want to just plop down a bunch of money for a poster that I really don't need.
Yeah, it's funny going off on that. My favorite is the Super Nintendo Now You're Playing with Superpower ads. Yeah. I'm looking at some of the graphics now, and it's you had all the smoke and the lightning and the giant red letters with Super Nintendo and Superpower. It was really cool stuff.
Just got you excited as a little kid. You're just like, oh, I want one so bad.
I know. He's like, oh yeah, I remember playing the Nintendo, but now it's the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history. To start us off, in 1990, Super C, aka Super Contra, was released by Konami for the NES in April. It was released for the arcade in 1988. I actually reviewed this on the show pretty early on. I actually played it for a little bit last night. After the power came back on, I didn't have any internet, so I just cranked up the Nintendo and played some Super C last night.
Yeah, I want to say this is on the NES Classic.
I think it is.
But I haven't played it.
Because I remember, I think we talked about that, because the original Contra is not on it, but Super C is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, so it's one that I have access to, but I just haven't got around to playing yet. Like a lot of games that I have.
It's good.
But I'll definitely have to check it out. Next up, Also in April of 1990, Snake's Revenge, a stealth action adventure video game produced by Konami for the NES in 1990, is the unofficial sequel to the original Metal Gear.
A lot of people hate on this game. I've never played it. I was never into Metal Gear series. I don't like stealth games at all, even up to this day. That's probably one of my least favorite gaming genres. But I never played this game, but a lot of people I talk to hate this game with a passion.
And I don't understand why.
I've
read a lot of the hate for it, but and maybe it's just because I've never played a Metal Gear game.
Yeah.
I don't know how it compares to the others or why it's, so hated. I really have no idea.
Might have to get an emulator, emulator copy of it, and try it out. I'm probably not going to like it as it is because I don't like stealth games, but I'll try it out.
Yeah.
Also, on April 16th of 1992, Origin Systems releases Ultima 7, The Black Gate for the PC. Ultima, one of the 12,000 different Ultima games there are out there.
This was the Ultima game of that particular week in which it was released.
Of that day that it was released.
Before Ultima 27 and Smell-O-Vision came out. I mean, we've talked about this series before, but I've never played it, so I can't really.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, I don't want to sell it short, but I don't really know that much about it.
Oh, it's got its fans. I mean, still to this day, people are still playing that Ultima Online, but man, it's definitely had staying power for like 40 years.
Oh, for sure. To close out this month in video game history, on April 27th, 1992, Nintendo releases Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy, the first game in the Kirby series. It's another game that I have memories of, going on road trips and whatnot. It is still to this day the only Kirby game that I've really played. It is a fun one, and it's one that, I'll review on a future episode. But, Kirby's got its fans. I mean, it's still... a game I think just came out for the Switch that features Kirby, so
little fun
he's still
fact,
going.
Back in the late 70s when, or maybe it might have been early, no, it was 70s, late 70s, Nintendo, of course, made Donkey Kong. And Universal came along and said, hey, they filed a lawsuit against Nintendo, which was just this, at the time, this little bitty company that was operating out of an apartment or something like that in America. But Universal came along and said, hey, this is a little too close to King Kong. So we want the money that Donkey Kong has made. So Nintendo hired a lawyer who looked into who owned the actual copyright of King Kong. Well, guess what? Universal made a King Kong remake in 1976, but guess what? Somebody at Universal messed up and never went back and copyrighted or actually, re-upped the copyright or whatever on King Kong. It lapsed. So it was in the public domain. So Nintendo, I think, countersued at the time. And I'm not sure exactly who got the rights to King Kong. I didn't follow the story that closely. But anyway, Nintendo came out on top in this lawsuit. Guess who their lawyer's name was?
Kirby.
Exactly. So that's kind of a nice little bit of trivia for Nintendo that, because Mario was named after their landlord. Why not name Kirby after their lawyer who won big for them in the late 70s? So I like it.
The more you know.
Exactly. I need to get that little sound bite. But let's go ahead and tell everybody about books for this week. Derek, have you been listening to anything good this week?
Well, so for you, the listeners of the Nerd Cave Retro podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download and free, I'll emphasize that word more, free, F-R-E-E, free, 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I've listened to several books from Audible that I could give great recommendations for. There's Ready Player One, There's the multiple Chris Jericho books I've read. And that's the cool thing about Audible is that you've got such a variety of things to choose from. You have fiction, nonfiction, autobiographies, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, gaming. Gaming books, they have World of
Romance
Warcraft,
gaming.
Gears of War.
You said romance
Math-
gaming. I've never heard of that genre.
Romance gaming. Yeah. That would be an interesting concept, though. Make a romance game.
I don't know if I'd play that.
Probably not. That could get into some dangerous territory. But hey, we'll that's for another episode to talk about.
Leisure Suit Larry would fall in that category.
I'm not even going to go there. Anyway, they have books from Mass Effect, Gears of War, Halo, so many gaming franchises. And that's the great thing about Audible is they have such a variety to choose from. You can find anything that you like on Audible, and it's free. You can go to audibletrial.com/nerdcave, use our code to download your free audiobook today. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nerdcave for your free audiobook download and 30-day free trial.
And this week we are talking about and music that for the Batman game we're going to be talking about this evening. It is officially called Batman Return of the Joker on the NES. It was known in Japan as Dynamite Batman. It's a 1991 platform video game, the follow-up to Sunsoft's first Batman game for the NES. But unlike that game, which was based on the 1989 Batman film, the Return of the Joker is entirely self-contained and based more on the comic book iteration of Batman. However, he does keep the Batmobile from the 1989 film. It was also made on the Sega Genesis, I think was it 92, called Revenge of the Joker by Ringler Studios. And a Super Nintendo version of Revenge of the Joker was in development but never released. And a different version of this game was released on the Game Boy in 1992. I didn't play the Game Boy version, but I did play the NES version. I played the Sega Genesis version, and I did get a not exactly a bootleg copy of the Super Nintendo version. We'll call
it legal version
in quotes. They're all the same game. I can't speak for the Game Boy game. The NES version still kind of looks the same as the first Batman game, kind of the same aesthetic, but it's completely different. I tried to look up some actual old reviews of this game, some written reviews. There really aren't any. The only thing I could find was YouTube video reviews of people the last couple of years reviewing this game. It's generally looked at pretty favorably on YouTube reviewers, but honestly, I did not like this game at all, especially after playing the first Batman game. I reviewed that one on the show here. It's got everything you want in a Nintendo game, and it's the most Batman of the games because you've got your jumping ability, the wall jumping. You've got your different batarangs and all that kind of stuff you can go through. You've got melee fighting. It's just kind of it's got platforming. It's just a really well made game. And then they went and made this game, and I could hear the boardroom meeting for this game. It's like, all right, guys, the first Batman game did well, so I think for this game we're going to take everything fun about the first game and the melee fighting and the jumping, the wall crawling or the wall jumping and all that. We're just going to throw all that out the window, and we're going to give Batman, those the Spider-Man web shooters that you can get little kids that shoot the little discs off of their wrists that you get from Target for like $15. Yeah, we're going to give Batman one of those. And give him some really crappy weaponry to use in the game, and we'll just use that. So let's take everything fun about the first game and just get rid of it. I did not like this game at all, man. I really wanted to like it because I never played this game before, and I really always just liked the actual cover art for the game. It looks awesome with the Joker's face
Yeah.
on it. Used the Batman font from the '80s. But basically, let me talk about the story for the game. Is each version of the game is essentially the same in storyline and format. The story begins with the Joker escaping Arkham Asylum, and through various henchmen trying to send Gotham City into chaos, Batman must survive several side-scrolling levels as well as defeat 5 boss levels to ensure that Gotham is safe. Batman is armed with a utility belt that allows him to collect various types of icons through the stages in order to shoot different types of batarangs and projectiles. And that's what I hated so much about this game. You can't fight. There's no melee fighting. There's no wall jumping ability. And when Batman jumps, he's kind of got that same sort of jump that I don't like about the original Castlevania, where you jump and the physics of it makes Batman feel like he weighs like 1,000 pounds. Like there's no real, long jumping abilities or anything. The only thing he really has is he shoots the batarangs and he does like the slide maneuver along the ground to kind of get you, I don't even know if it does any damage when you like slide kick somebody, but you have to do it a lot to escape some of the ridiculous boss battles in this game. And especially like I knew I wasn't going to like this game because the first night I played the NES version, and I couldn't even get past the first boss. And I gave up after about an hour and a half, and I was like, something about that game I just don't like. So I was like, maybe I'll just give it a couple days, let me kind of rest on it a little bit, think about it, and come back to it. And that's when I went and looked up some reviews of it, watched some reviews on YouTube. And everybody generally seemed to like the game. So I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just expecting too much of the first game. I'll go back and play it again. Played this for the second time, and I was like, yeah, I got through the first level okay. I was like, it's okay. And then once you get to the second level, and this is just like World 1, 2 or whatever. It's got that, it does that same thing where, the pirate ship level on Super Mario Brothers 3, how it constantly moves to the right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, but not good. And I hate levels like that. And it took me so many like continues to get through that part because I would get impatient and just fall, or the screen doesn't move fast enough to where like you can see what's coming, or you end up getting like sandwiched between like a crate and the left side of the screen, and it's like insta-death, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So before I go any further, any questions? I've been going on for a while.
No, it's all good. Whenever I was looking up, because I'd never even heard of this game until you said you were going to review it, my first takeaway was I love the cover. Mm-hmm. It looks just like the cover of a Batman comic.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. And then, the very few things that I could find out about this game weren't too kind to it. So I was curious to hear your review on it. Why would you take, so this is a Batman game without fighting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That makes zero sense.
It's like
that's like the first thing I think of when I think of Batman is just fighting thugs in an alley, or fighting the Joker or the Riddler or Mr. Freeze.
And then it does that thing where like if you're standing too close to someone, you can't hit them with the batarang shooter or whatever, because when he shoots, he's got his arm straight out. If you stand too close to someone, you can't hit them. And you just stand there taking damage. And you can only get hit like 8 times. And I know that sounds like a lot, because a lot of games you get hit once and you're dead. But you can get hit 8 times in like less than a second and die. So it doesn't really do much good to have like a health bar. So I just don't like it. I tried to like it. I just don't. And then so... excuse me, I fired up the Sega Genesis version, which the graphics look a little better. Of course, I mean, it's 16-bit, but it was the same thing over there. It's basically the same game ported over. and I couldn't really. I spent about 30 minutes on it, and I was like, "This is just not fun at all. I don't. It's not fun." And then, of course, I played the SNES version, which it's the same thing. It kind of looks. It looks like the Sega Genesis version, but it's a little bit brighter, and that was a lot of games that shared, Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo tended to have a little bit brighter graphics, but at the same time, I can kind of understand why this game never got released because it would have sucked. It just wasn't fun. It's not good.
It just sounds like a failure from the start. When you said that they took the fighting out of Batman, you're basically ripping the heart out of it.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, when you think of Batman, you think of fighting bad guys.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, what's the point? You might as well just take everything Batman related out of it and just have it be, I don't know, something completely different.
Yeah, and if you're gonna, it was basically, you could tell it was the same game engine that they used for the first game because the graphics are almost exactly the same. The backgrounds and the character animation, but why would you take all the good stuff out of it? Like all the fighting, just if they would have just left in the ability to like punch and kick and do the high jumping and stuff like that, I'd have probably been okay with this game.
Yeah.
But they just took everything out about the Batman game that was fun, and just you're left with a really nice looking, game art. But other than that, there's just nothing there. So that's pretty much all I got to say about it. I played all 3 versions of it. I didn't play the Game Boy version of it. I mean, if you like Batman, the cover art's nice enough to actually want to own a copy of this. But this game is from Sunsoft. So one thing I've found with the Sunsoft label from back in the NES days is Sunsoft was one of those labels where one of those publishers where the game is either really good or it's a complete failure. So you don't really get much in between with Sunsoft games. So this is, in my opinion, one of the ones that ends up in the failure pile, but I would love to find an actual copy of this game just to have because the cover art looks so nice.
I'd love to have it as a poster.
Yeah, it looks like a like a graphic novel that you would buy.
Yeah. What would you give it on a number scale?
This is gonna get out of 10. It's just gonna sit right there in the middle, like a 5. It's not good at all. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not good either. It's just kind of one of those meh. I'm never gonna play this again ever.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
I mean, it's not as broken as Fester's Quest. It's not unplayable. I mean, it is playable, but the mechanics of the game aren't broken. Like Fester's Quest is, but it's just kind of so middle of the road and just, it feels rushed and slapped together is what it feels like from the very beginning. The Batman game did so well. They were just like, all right, we got to get another game out. And they couldn't wait for the sequel of the movie, so they put out a sequel to the game, which was based off the movie. And then when they finally got around to doing, Batman Returns for the SNES, that game was awesome. I mean, that's the Batman game to have. The first Batman game for the NES, Batman Returns, and then another game that I want to review soon, The Adventures of Batman and Robin for the SNES, which is freaking awesome. I mean, it is. It's like playing.
That's the one based off the animated series,
yes,
right?
It's so good too. Like the fighting and just using the your weapons and you do your whole utility belt loadout before each screen. It's great. I don't really know why they called it The Adventures of Batman and Robin, because Robin's not a playable character in the game.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, Yeah, this game, like I said, if you find a copy of it and you want to pick it up, the cover art looks nice, but this is not something you're going to want to play. Especially if you're a fan of the first Batman game, the punching, the fighting, the actual Batman-ness of it, you're not going to like this game. So That's all I got to say about it.
Jason has spoken.
I have spoken. But that's pretty much going to bring us to the end of this episode. Derek, is there anything you wanted to throw out there before we go this week?
No, just as always, be sure to check out the Derek Diamond Experience. New episodes come out every Thursday on iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcasting platforms. You can follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at D Diamond Podcast.
Awesome. And for the Pop Culture Palette, we just had a new episode drop this last weekend where we had Mr. Jeremy Branch, who worked on the Survey film with me and Derek. He was on the episode. He runs Movies Are Terrible on YouTube. And so go listen to that episode at PCP Show and PCPradio.com if you want to go listen to it. Other than that, I think it's time to call it a night. What do you say?
I'm right there with you.
Well, let me go ahead and play our music and we'll get out of here. If you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com and we will read it on the show. We're at nerdcaveretro.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro, at jfunktastic, at Derek_Diamond, and we're at Facebook at facebook.com/nerdcaveretro. So Derek, tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
You've been listening to a Nerd Cave Network production.
All right. And anybody watching us on Twitch right now, we're going to give us about 2 or 3 minutes to get changed over to a new stream. And we'll be talking about, what are we doing? Oh, Sonic 3.
Yes, sir.
So we will see you guys in just a few.
Bye.
Bye.